What does it look like if we say no? We don't play that week.
I guess in the interest of doing the deal that we all want, maybe we should, play ball.
Yeah. No. Great. Great. Good. Let's go get the deal.
Let's get it.
Let's bleed the Swede.
Kendall Roy, Logan's second eldest son, was always gearing up to take over the company after his father was getting old. His sole motivation in life is to impress his demanding father, hoping to convince him that he is the person to take over. His world was turned upside down when Logan declares that he isn't going to retire and immediately has a stroke. Kendall steps in as acting CEO, only to learn the company is in big debt, and he has to face a lot of accusations against the company, some of which are very serious and could take the company down. When Logan wakes up, Kendall finds himself locked in a complex power struggle with his siblings as well as his dad, who he both loves and fears the most. As the stress begins to mount, Kendall struggles to maintain his sanity and often drowns in the demons of his past. In his college days, Kendall and Stewie used to party and did cocaine together. Ken used to have a heavy cocaine problem and even had to attend rehab. That is the earliest we know of Kendall Roy, clearly someone struggling with drug abuse and addiction, and someone who needs love more than anything, which he never got. He separated from his wife, Rava. Kendall's addiction problems drove issues in his marriage as well. He did become sober and wanted to give his relationship another try, but Rava isn't interested anymore and wants to co parent their children. Kendall is insecure and full of false bravado. He longs to be as successful as his father. He wants to be loved by his wife, his siblings, his father, and most of all his children. In the episode of his birthday, he comes to know that his kids have made him a gift, but he can't just simply seem to find them, and that drives him crazy. There are a lot of things that make Ken a sympathetic and vulnerable protagonist, someone who we want to root for. However, Ken always lacked Logan's cutthroat instinct. In the finale of season 2, after Ken asks his dad if he could ever become the CEO and if he could do the top job, Logan replies, "You're not a killer, you have to be a killer." Till that moment, we empathize with Ken, how he accidentally was responsible for the death of someone, and how his father manipulated him and kept him down using him. Yes, Ken was always entitled and selfish with a big ego, but there was still humanity inside him, a certain vulnerability about him. That is the reason when he exposed his father at that press conference, it was such a jaw dropping, amazing moment that made you want to cheer for him. Could he finally take control and become the successor? Could he finally win against his own father? It turns out in season 3 that it was very premature of us to assume that Ken would win against his dad. After all, Ken is also incapable and often delusional, and the show has given us much evidence of that. He makes a series of mistakes, gets depressed, drowns himself in addiction again, and almost floats himself to death. He is sidelined and no one is taking him seriously. Logan had won again. Then comes a key moment in the show where he confesses to his brother and sister about how he was responsible for the death of someone, and that liberates his torment. The fact that he is not alone and trapped, that he can open up like that. It was a major turning point for him. Team's siblings were finally united. Thinking they had the upper hand, they went after their father, against the idea of selling the company, trying to veto him. But Logan won again with the infamous Tom's betrayal. Ken and the siblings tried to start their own thing before they decided to come in the way of Logan's plans again. However, they were shell shocked when their father, Logan Roy, died in one of the most shocking episodes of television I can remember in recent times. Everything was up in the air. Who would succeed? Would the siblings still be united, or will the lust to become CEO make them go against each other? The latter happened when the team finds a piece of paper mentioning that Logan wanted Ken to take over, and I will leave it up to you to decide whether this is underlined or striked. Anyways, it is eventually decided that Ken and Roman would become acting CEOs, since the company's succession plan formally dictated that leadership should be passed on to the COO, which was Roman at the time. Shiv is distraught, and rightfully so. Given Kendall's past controversies, Hugo and Carolina propose a PR campaign questioning Logan's character and decision making up to his death. They wanted Logan to look bad to the press, mentioning his physical and mental abuse. Roman shuts this down immediately. Kendall, however, privately uses Hugo to go through with the strategy he and Carolina proposed. Hugo had been through some deep shit because her daughter sold some Vesta stock when Hugo told her about Logan's death before it was made public. Kendall uses this. He uses Hugo, and this is where Kendall has many ways become his father. He is no longer the vulnerable, sympathetic, flawed person he always was. Now he will go to lengths that even his siblings wouldn't imagine. In many ways, this is the answer to his father when his father told him that he was not a killer. Kendall is doing something that his father would have done probably. Once a character we rooted for has instead learned many of the traits his father possessed, often not due to his own fault, but just the shitty circumstances life threw at him and the lack of love he got throughout the show. Many a times you just wanted to hug the guy, but now I believe he's too far gone and there is no coming back. In the latest episode, Kendall, enticed by the power of running Waystar, resolves to sabotage the Gojo deal with Roman. He basically manipulates Roman, which reminded me of how their father Logan Roy manipulated his kids. I do believe that Ken is misguided in his ambitions, but he surely has that killer instinct now. There is also calm about him now that was lacking the first time he went against his father. He is now the head of the family. I'm sorry, Connor Roy has something to say. Well, no one is interested.